It's February 2026, and we are staring at this really strange economic paradox right now.
Yeah, it's wild. On one hand, you have the cost of a university degree hitting absolute record highs. I mean, it's basically a luxury good at this point.
Right, exactly. But then on the other side, the actual market value of that degree,
What it actually gets you in the real world.
yeah, its ability to actually get you a job has arguably never been lower.
Yeah.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into credentialism. We're unpacking why degree requirements just totally spiraled out of control and why right now in 2026, that bubble is finally starting to hiss.
And we've got a really fantastic stack of sources today to help us figure this out. We are pulling from the 2026 Job Skills Report from Coursera, which is essentially a real-time map of what employers actually want right now.
Plus, we're looking at some fresh hiring data from one source in Glenn's Talent Hub.
Right. And to ground all this, we have some fascinating historical context from Wikipedia on degree inflation and a very practical, tactical guide from Resume Flex on how to actually survive this shift.
Because that is the mission today. We want to help you, the listener, navigate a job market where what you can do is rapidly overtaking where you went to school. But we also have to acknowledge the systemic pressures that got us here in the first place.
Absolutely. To understand the solution, you have to understand the illness. So let's start with the diagnosis, credentialism.
Right.
It sounds like this dry academic buzzword, but it hits everyone's paycheck. The sources define credentialism as this heavy reliance on formal qualifications like certificates or degrees to decide if someone is allowed to do a job.
But the problem isn't the credential itself, right?
Right.
I mean, we like credentials. The problem is credential inflation. The Wikipedia source uses this paper currency analogy, which I thought was just perfect.
Oh, it is the best way to visualize it. I mean, imagine an economy where the central bank just prints way too much money.
Too many dollars chasing too few goods.
Exactly. So the value of the dollar drops. Education works the exact same way. When you pump a massive surplus of degrees into a market that has a static number of jobs, the actual value of that degree just plummets.
Which leads perfectly into credential creep. I saw this statistic in the research, and it is absolutely wild. 65% of job postings for executive secretaries right now require a bachelor's degree.
But the kicker is only 19% of the people currently doing that job successfully actually have one.
Right, so let's look at that gap. The job itself didn't change. You still need typing speed, organization, scheduling, that's all the same. But the barrier to entry just arbitrarily went up by 4 years and $50,000.
Yeah.
Why do companies do this? It seems incredibly inefficient to just filter out 80% of your potential workforce.
Because it's a lazy filter. That is the brutal truth of it. When a hiring manager gets 500 applications for one single slot, they do not have time to read them all.
Obviously not.
So they use the degree as a proxy for quality. They just assume, well, if they finished college, they must be somewhat disciplined. It's not about assessing skills anymore. It's about shrinking the resume pile to a manageable size.
It's an employer's market tactic.
Yeah.
But, looking at the historical context, this obsession with credentials didn't just appear out of nowhere. I was reading through the historical notes on the U.S. Gilded Age, and it seems like this is where the American obsession with professionalism really kicked off.
Yeah, we're talking post-1870s here. Because before that, the American dream was really about ownership. You were a farmer or a shopkeeper, a blacksmith. You were your own boss.
Right, but then the monopolies took over.
Exactly. Standard Oil, Carnegie, they crushed the small guys.
So the path to being an independent entrepreneur basically vanished.
Yeah.
Everyone becomes an employee.
And that was a massive blow to the collective ego. People hated that. They lost that sense of independence. So to regain some kind of social prestige, they started chasing professional labels. They wanted a title to separate themselves from the common wage laborer.
And that's when the certifications really started rolling in.
Right. And some were good, like the Flexner Report in 1910. That basically stopped random people from claiming to be doctors. We definitely want doctors to be certified.
For sure.
But sociologists point out that it morphed into what they call occupational closure. You use the credential to lock people out and keep wages high for the insiders.
And fast forward to today, the result of all that is massive underemployment. About 1/3 of college grads are working jobs that don't even require the degree they just went into debt for.
It's a systemic mismatch. We've overproduced credentials and underproduced the jobs that actually require them.
And this is the good news, the market is finally correcting itself. This is the shift we're seeing in the 2026 Glints and OneSource reports. It looks like the degree ceiling is finally cracking.
It really is. The data from Tuscarora, which was cited in the Glintz report, is highly significant here. By late 2025, 53% of employers had removed degree requirements from their job postings entirely.
That is huge. That's the majority. That's a real tipping point. We are now in a world where more companies do not require a degree than do.
It's the rise of skills-first recruitment. Companies are waking up and realizing that a degree from 2018 tells them absolutely nothing about whether you can use the AI tools of 2026. The shelf life of skills is now shorter than the time it takes to get a degree.
It also feels like remote work forced their hand a bit here. The report mentions borderless talent.
Definitely. Think about it. If I'm a tech lead in San Francisco and I need a very specific Python script written and I hire a contractor in Brazil, honestly, do I know the reputation of the local university in São Paulo?
Probably not. You have no context for their credentials.
Exactly. I don't care about the pedigree. I care about their GitHub repo. Can you do the work? The global nature of the talent pool forces you to judge based on output, not the name on the diploma. If the code runs, you get the job.
Okay, so if the degree matters less, the skills matter more. But skills is a very vague word. The Coursera Job Skills Report 2026 gets extremely specific here, and it's not just learn to code anymore.
No, and this is where people really get tripped up. They think AI replaces the need for foundational technical skills. But the report introduces this crucial concept of layering.
Break that down for us. What exactly are we layering?
Think of a sandwich. The bottom bun is still your foundational technical skill. If you look at the fastest growing skills in the report, SQL and JSON are still right at the top.
Just to clarify for the listener, SQL is the standard language for talking to databases, and JSON is a format for storing and moving data. These are basically the plumbing of the internet.
Right. You cannot use AI to build a database if you don't understand how a database works. The AI will hallucinate, it'll make structural errors, and you won't even know it because you don't speak the language. So you absolutely need that foundation.
Okay, so the plumbing is the foundation.
Yes. But the layer on top of that is the AI proficiency. So you need SQL, but now you also need, and these are straight off the list, unsupervised learning and generative model architectures.
And look at the speed of adoption here. Coursera saw GenAI enrollments hit 14 per minute.
14 enrollments every 60 seconds. It is a gold rush. That is the global workforce realizing, I need to add this layer immediately.
But here's the insight that I think is the most critical takeaway for this whole deep dive. If the AI is writing the code or writing the marketing copy, what is the human actually getting paid for?
The human becomes the validator.
The validator.
Yes. Look at the growth stats for data professionals in that Coursera report. Skill number 1 is multimodal prompts. That's knowing how to talk to the AI using text, image, and video all at once. But look at skill number 2.
Critical thinking, up 168%.
And data quality is up 108%. Data cleansing up 103%. They're all booming. This tells us the real story of 2026. As AI automates the basic task, and remember, 49% of AI interactions involve automation, the human isn't the generator anymore. The human is the auditor.
You're the editor-in-chief.
Exactly.
That is a massive psychological shift. You aren't being paid to type anymore. You're being paid to catch the machine's mistakes.
And to do that, you actually need higher expertise, not lower. You have to know enough to spot a really subtle error in the code or a hidden bias in the data. You have to be the adult in the room.
I want to pause the optimism for just a second here, because while skills first sounds great and very meritocratic, the alternative where we just keep inflating degrees is genuinely scary. The Wikipedia entry had a section on non-US countries that serves as a massive warning sign.
You're talking about the Niwan phenomenon in China.
Yes, involution. It's such a fascinating concept. Evolution is growth outward, right? Expanding into new territory. Involution is turning inward, spiraling into more and more complexity without actually making any forward progress.
It's motion without movement. It's a hamster wheel that spins faster and faster but gets you nowhere. The example from the sources that really lands is the security guard market in certain Chinese cities. They literally started seeing job postings for security guards that required a master's degree.
That is the textbook definition of a broken market.
It's what happens when competition becomes totally irrational. Everyone gets more educated, but the number of high-level jobs doesn't actually change. So the education requirement just trickles down until you have PhDs competing for entry-level work.
There was also that controversy at Peking Union Medical College regarding the 4+4 model. Can you explain why that caused such a massive backlash?
Yeah, so they tried to mimic the American medical model. 4 years of regular non-medical college and then 4 years of med school.
Which sounds standard to us.
Right. But the public there hated it. They saw it as a complete waste of time. They called it an educational luxury that only the wealthy could afford. Because it wasn't making better doctors, it was just acting as a financial filter to weed out poor students who couldn't afford 8 years of tuition.
Just becomes a game of status, not skill. And the social fallout of that is very real. We've heard of Tang Ping,
Yeah.
right? Lying flat.
It's a completely rational response. If the rat race requires a master's degree just to be a security guard, why run? Young people just opt out. They do the bare minimum to survive because the fundamental promise that hard work equals success has been broken.
And it even bleeds over into the marriage markets. This was a detail in the research that really struck me.
It's a full-blown demographic crisis. Highly educated women often prefer partners with equal or higher education. But because of the gender imbalance and this insane degree inflation, there just aren't enough quote-unquote qualified men.
So marriage rates drop.
Marriage rates drop, birth rates drop, and it spirals out into the whole society.
And we see similar stress in South Korea, too. 70% of the population has a diploma, yet they have record-high suicide rates and plummeting birth rates. It's a stark reminder that just getting more education isn't a silver bullet for a society. It can actually become a trap.
Which brings us right back to why the skills pivot is really the only way out. We have to stop measuring human potential by how many years you sat in a classroom and start measuring it by what you can actually validate and create.
Okay, so let's get tactical. If you're listening to this and you want to play this new game, you want to be a validator and actually prove your skills, how do you fix your resume? We have this guide from Resume Flex that is surprisingly specific.
The main headline here is that your resume needs to look a little more like an academic CV, even if you aren't an academic.
They suggest listing publications and projects prominently.
Yes, but you have to use a curator mindset. Do not just dump every blog post you've ever written on there. Create a section called Selected Publications. Just using the word selected implies scarcity and high quality.
And there was this tiny formatting tip I loved. Bold your own name.
Smith, J in bold. It sounds so trivial, but it subtly guides the eye. It subconsciously tells the recruiter, I am a cited authority. It frames you as the protagonist of the work.
What about work that isn't finished yet? Because this is always a gray area. I don't want to lie, but I want credit for what I'm building.
The guide is very strict on the ethics here. If a project or an article is accepted but just not out yet, use in press or under review. That counts. That means it passed a filter. But avoid in preparation.
Yeah, in preparation basically just means I had an idea in the shower.
Exactly. It looks speculative and kind of desperate. Employers want to see what you have actually shipped, or at least what someone else has agreed to ship. And use metrics. Don't just list a paper. List the impact factor or the citation count to prove it's relevant.
And what about for the non-writers? The coders, the designers?
Then the portfolio is your new degree. But again, validation matters. A white paper or a technical report published on a recognized industry platform like TechCrunch or a major GitHub repository carries 10 times the weight of a post on your personal diary or a Wix site.
It comes back to that theme of external validation. You need someone else to vouch for your skill. Whether it's a recognized platform or a verified work sample, you can't just claim it anymore. You have to show the receipts.
And specifically, receipts that show you can handle that AI layer we talked about. If your portfolio is just basic code, that's very 2020. Your portfolio today needs to show how you used AI to amplify that code, and crucially, how you validated the AI's output.
So let's synthesize all of this. We started with the problem. Credentialism is essentially hyperinflation. We printed too many degrees, so they buy less and less in the job market.
Then we looked at the correction. The market is aggressively pivoting to skills-first hiring because they need speed and specific competence, especially with the rise of AI. They simply can't wait 4 years for a university to update its curriculum.
We defined the new skill stack. It's those foundational tech skills, the plumbing layered with AI fluency, and capped off with critical human validation.
And we saw the extreme danger of ignoring this shift. If we don't move to skills, we end up in involution. We end up competing harder and harder for less, just spinning our wheels in a status game that literally nobody wins.
And that is the thought I want to leave you with today. In the job market of 2026, it isn't about who you are or what title is on your degree. It is about how you validate information. You have a choice right now.
Yeah.
You can participate in involution, chasing the next expensive credential, hoping it saves you, entering a rat race that is mathematically impossible to win.
Or you can choose evolution.
Exactly.
Evolution means building that layer that the AI cannot replace. The judgment, the ethics, the critical thinking, the ability to look at the machine's output and confidently say, that's wrong, and here's how we fix it.
Don't spin your wheels. Evolve your skills. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
See you next time.